Hello, and welcome. I'm McKenna Sage, and today we are talking about a powerful coaching skill to empower your clients and improve your relationships. So I'm really happy to be here with you all. As you're tuning in today, please say hello in the comments if you're watching this live. And even if you're watching the replay, I'd love to see you engaging here, and it helps you be more engaged. It also helps me be able to support you, especially if you're on the live call, because I love to answer questions and really make this applicable to you. So, just had a beautiful walk this morning with my mom and my puppy. Hi, Cindy. Nice to see you. And really happy to be here with you all to share on this very important topic. It's one of the foundational skills that we teach in our 9-month coaching certification called Aliveness Mastery. And so before we get into that, I just want to introduce myself. I'm McKenna Sage. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Follow Your Aliveness and the Mastery of Coaching Facebook group that you're in here. And we really help coaches and aspiring coaches to grow thriving businesses and lives they love by mastering what we call the coaching trinity. That is business mastery, coaching mastery, and self mastery. So, by the way, if you're watching, get out a pen and paper if you have one, or take notes on your phone or wherever you are, because we're going to go through a lot of great content today. And this is a really important piece, the coaching trinity: business mastery, coaching mastery, and self mastery. So, you might want to write those down. And I just wanted to say, why self mastery? So, self mastery is about no longer getting stuck in the fears, the self doubts, or other patterns that may be holding you back or keeping you sort of stuck or playing small. And so, it's really about mastering the self. And then, business mastery is so that you can make great money doing the work that you love that also makes a difference in the world, right? You are impact driven. And, if you only are a great coach and you've mastered yourself, but you don't know the business side of things, then it's going to be really hard to build a sustainable business. And then coaching mastery is really what today's video is about. And this is really important because obviously you want to be the best coach you can be, but also what that leads to is what we call the 3 R's. So you may want to write these down as well. The 3 R's are more repeat clients, more referrals, and a better reputation. Many, if not most, of our clients come back and work with us multiple times. Some of them come back for years. We have clients, my mom has clients who is also my mentor and business partner, Gigi. She has clients who have worked with her for 15, 20, 25 plus years. And so imagine that. Imagine not having to go out and constantly look for new leads because you actually have people coming back to work with you again and again. So that's the power of coaching mastery. And that's really what today's video is about, is that third one, coaching mastery. And, we have many other videos in this group on the business mastery and the self mastery side. So today's video is really for you if you want to develop the skills of a master coach and help guide your clients to their own wisdom rather than simply giving advice. If you're struggling with clients who can't seem to get clarity or who don't follow through on what they say they're going to do, that can be very frustrating as a coach because you're like, I'm coaching them, we're coming up with this plan, and then they're just not doing it. And then if you want to experience more connection and easier communication in your relationships, both personal and professional. So we really say that coaching skills are communication skills, they're life skills. And so what we're going to teach you today is a skill that you can apply in your client relationships, your other professional relationships, but also in your personal relationships, especially if you're in like a romantic partnership or with your kids, or even with the rest of your family. So again, if you are tuning in, I can't see anymore for some reason. It used to tell me how many people were watching, but I can't see that anymore. So just say hello in the chat so I know you can see and hear me. And let me know if you have any specific questions you want me to cover today, because I really like to make these interactive. And to get the most out of this training, I highly encourage you to take notes, like I said. So get a pen and paper, or take notes on your phone, and then to engage in the comments, because that really allows me to coach you. If you've been on any of these before, you'll know I make them super interactive. I coach as much as I can with you being on, the chat here and me being on video. But we really make these where, we can go back and forth on questions you have and so on and so forth. And if you want to go deeper beyond this training today, we have lots of other great free trainings in the group. We also have two other ways you can go deeper, which I'll just tell you now. So that way you can just focus on the content for the rest of the call. One is the clarity call. So this is a 30-minute free coaching session that we offer here. And there's nothing for sale on that call. However, it is a great next step if you're curious about any of our programs. What you're going to do in that session is get really crystal clear on your vision, your next steps. So if you're already clear on your vision, then we'll really look at the action plan and then anything that could hold you back so you can make a plan to move through that. This is really the first step if you are curious about coming into any of our programs, because at the end of that call, if it feels like a mutual fit, then we will invite you to apply for one of our programs, but that's a whole separate application process. So first, you really get the benefit of this free coaching session. So if that's something you're curious about now or at any point in the call today, just type clarity in the chat and make sure to send me a friend request, because if you don't friend request me, I can't message you the link to schedule that. So that is one of the ways you can go deeper. The other way is Package Your Wisdom is my 21-day challenge to really help you get crystal clear and client ready. So even if you're already coaching, by the way, a lot of people go through this challenge to really tune things up if they're feeling like something's not quite aligning. But this is really about getting crystal clear on who you serve, what's your message, what are your packages, your pricing, the confidence to go out and put yourself out there, really making sure there's a market for what you want to offer. And I've had people go through that and literally sign clients just in this process without even trying to go and get any clients. So if you're curious about that program, it's 21 days, it's $97. It starts in June. Type wisdom in the chat and my team will reach out to you. So wanted to get that out of the way first so that we can really focus on content for the rest of this call. If you're watching this as a replay on YouTube or Instagram and you can't, commenting might not be the best way to get in touch with me, then find me on Instagram at McKenna Sage, MakeNasage, and then send me a direct message and I'll make sure to get you those resources. All right, so let's dive into the content. So I'm first want to talk about why this is so important, the skill that we're going to teach today. And the skill is called the curiosity skill, and it's actually the first foundational skill that we teach in our 9-month certification, Aliveness Mastery. So Rose Gold said, hello, glad to be here with you live. Wisdom. Okay, great, Rose. So I'll be sending that to you. Make sure, Rose, that you've sent me a friend request, because if you haven't, I won't be able to send it. So that's true for anyone. I do see that you have, though. Great. So, all right, why this skill is so important, the curiosity skill. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone where you were sharing what was going on with you in hopes of working through something and getting clarity, and the other person kept jumping in with advice or ideas, or they just kept kind of jumping in? I want you guys who are watching here live to tell me yes if you've ever experienced that. So say yes in the chat if you've experienced this before. Have you ever been in that kind of conversation? So you've got, all the stuff in your heart, you're want to talk through it, and you start sharing it with someone. It might have even been a coach. People have had this experience with coaches even, or a friend or a family member or your partner, and, you're trying to kind of sort through it, and they're like, I know what you should do. This, and this, right? Or they just start jumping in oh, well, then you should really do this, or this would help, or, for me, this worked, and so on and so forth. Have you ever had that experience? Type yes in the chat if you have. Okay, I'm seeing some yeses coming through. What was that experience like for you? Sometimes it can be helpful, right? People's advice can be good, but did it sort of feel a little just describe to me in the chat, what was that experience like for you when you're trying to get through, work through this stuff, and it kind of gets interrupted in a sense by someone jumping in with advice. Now, this is really well-meaning, right? People mean well. They want to help. And even a lot of coaches do this. I've heard countless stories. I've experienced this myself with coaches, and then I've heard countless stories. I was just on a call last week with someone who has literally invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in her personal growth and development and worked with various coaches. And she was like, I just feel like they're just giving me advice or putting something on top of me. And it's so rare that I have the experience of someone really deeply listening. Cindy said, I wasn't being heard. Yeah. So there's deep listening, but I'm going to talk in a moment why even deep listening isn't the skill that you need to cultivate as a coach, which may be counterintuitive to what some of you have thought or learned. So, but first, let's just stick with this example of people jumping in with advice. Now, I don't even mean like interrupting necessarily. I just mean like they're listening for a while, you're talking, and then they just share what they see in terms of like advice or ideas or what's worked for them. So it doesn't have to feel like intrusive, but even then you could be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea, or yeah, should probably do that. But it doesn't connect in this really powerful way. And so I'm going to tell you the alternative here in the moment, which is the curiosity skill. I experienced this, like I said, when I was working with different coaches and trying to get clear on what I wanted to do next in my career before I stepped into coaching. So, back when I was in my marketing career, making a transition or wanting to make a transition, I worked with a lot of different coaches and I just had that experience left and right. And it was really good advice, a lot of what they were sharing with me, but it just didn't feel like it completely connected with me because it didn't come from me, it came from them. So I want you to make these subtle distinctions. And you might even in this moment be having an aha, like, wow, yeah, that's why that didn't really work for me, right? And so most people have had this experience, but they may or may not have even noticed it unless it was really overt, right? And, but we do, like when you think about it this way, you go, oh, wow, that's why it never really aligned or fit, or I tried that thing out and it didn't really work. And this is what we see so much of the time. This happens all the time in relationships, of course, where someone, this is more like the jumping in trying to fix something or solve something. And our partners maybe jump in and do this when we try to share, or vice versa. You might even do it with your partner. And so that can be frustrating because we're really just trying to like sort through it. And in some cases, we just want to complain or emote, right? So it's interesting because it's so programmed into us as a society, as a culture, to want to solve things. And one of the biggest tenets we teach in our coaching programs is you don't solve people's problems as a coach. And people are like, what do you mean? Of course you solve people's problems. Nope. I just did a coaching night like a few weeks ago, and like a in-person coaching evening, and I was demonstrating coaching in front of the room, and this one woman got up and we were doing some coaching, and everyone in the room kept jumping in because I offered if they saw something to jump in, and they kept jumping in with either advice, ideas, or trying to solve the problem. And I said, wait, 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 we're not going to solve her problem. Instead, we give people a bigger and better problem. And that bigger and better problem is going for their dreams. But not just, but how do you do that? Like, how do you give them the challenge of going for their dreams? You don't just say, oh, here's the challenge, go for your dreams, right? The way I describe it makes it sound overly simplistic, but the point here I want to make is not to be in the frame of mind of trying to solve people's problems. When you do this, you have gone to the same level of thinking that they are in. Have you ever heard that quote? You can't solve a problem from the same level of thinking that you created it, something like that. Paraphrasing. I believe it's Albert Einstein. And so think about that. We are in our lives, we're in our experience, we're seeing things in a certain lens, and we're at a certain level or vibration or energy or whatever you want to call it, perspective, a certain way of thinking. And in some ways, we are inside a box. And we always say it's like the instructions are written on the outside of the box. And so your role as a coach is actually to be on the outside of that box, looking, seeing, using the curiosity skill to help people shift out of their way of thinking. And this is why this skill is so, so powerful. So is everyone following me so far? Like, I know I haven't taught the skill yet, but are you following like why jumping in and giving advice isn't it, and trying to solve people's problems isn't it either? Now I want to talk about, if so, just say yes in the chat so I know you're still with me. Now I want to talk about why deep listening isn't it either, okay? Because deep listening is great. And a lot of times as a coach, you're taught to listen deeply and like people like repeat back what they heard and all of this. That's not actually what we teach at all at the, in the aliveness method. The challenge with deep listening is that when you listen deeply, you also often buy into people's stories. And again, you're pulled into their perspective and their way of seeing things, right? So think about it. You're like totally engrossed when you're listening deeply. And so you start seeing the world the way they're seeing the world. And that's great if you just want to be empathetic and be a good friend. So deep listening might be great in a friendship, for example, where you really want to like just be there and listen and empathize. Awesome. But when it comes to coaching, it's not actually what you want to do, because you are not there to be their friend. You're there to be their coach. And as the coach, you need to stay in what we call the seat of the coach. All right. And the seat of the coach is the space where you are, again, a little outside. You're very emotionally connected. You can be warm, you can be loving. So it's not that you're cool or distant, but this is like very deep stuff that I'm trying to explain, but we go a lot deeper into in our programs, obviously. But I'm going to just give you guys like the Cliff Notes version so you get like a glimpse of what this is, and maybe you can start to play with it a little bit. So you're still warm and connected, but you're a little outside in such a way that you can see and observe and notice changes in people's vitality as they speak. And that is what the curiosity skill is all about. Debbie says, yes, they need to find the answer. We can only guide. Yes, absolutely. But they don't need to find the answer from the same level of thinking that created the situation they're in the first place. So this is where it's tricky, because if we just ask questions and let them come up with it, people are going to come up with all kinds of stuff, but that doesn't mean that it's actually the right direction for them. So this is where the subtlety comes in of like, how do you help them see what is the right direction for them without jumping in and offering advice? Are you guys kind of seeing how this is far more complex than it might seem at first glance? But these are the foundational skills. They're so, so important. So most programs that I'm aware of teach a lot of great coaching questions. They teach deep listening, but this part of how to be in the seat of the coach, and then how to watch for shifts in people's vitality, because they give you clues that point you in the right direction. This is something that is unique to the work that we do here at Follow Your Aliveness. So what's the alternative? The foundational skill of the aliveness method, as I mentioned, is called the curiosity skill. So write this down, the curiosity skill. And before I tell you how to practice this skill, I want to show the impact of using curiosity and the other skills and frameworks of the aliveness method with clients. So I'm trying to see, before I got on, it said that I could screen share, but I think I can only either screen share or be on video. So I don't think it's going to let me do that. Let's see. Polls, questions, graphics. That's not it. All right, I think we're going to have to stay on video here. So what I'm going to do, because I do want to show you guys these images, is I'm going to see if I can just upload them directly to the chat here. Comment with a sticker. It looks like I'll be able to upload the links. So are you guys up for just like clicking these links? So there's one. And you may take you out of the video. If it does, you can come right back in. There's another one, or you can save the links and look at them in a little while. And there's a third one. So these are 3 images of clients, and I'm going to give you guys just a minute to look at them and just notice on the before, so the left side and the right side, are they the same or different? That's all I want you to notice. And if they're different, how are they different? Okay, so just take a moment here and check out these videos. If you're watching the replay, or if you're on another platform, the images that we're looking at here are before and after images of clients. We actually record people on video before and after we work with them. And then we take still shots from those videos and we put them side by side. And we actually do this even during sometimes. So people will do it when they first start our programs and then partway through and then at the end to show the physiological changes that take place as people as we coach them using the aliveness method. And so if you're looking at some of these images, for example, before and after number 1, you may notice that on the left side, or on the right side rather, because we're looking at what the change has been, the two sides of her face are much more balanced and integrated. Much more balanced and integrated. So, and then the eyes are much more open on the right side in the after. There's a lot more light in the eyes. The face is more relaxed. It's also, I would say, in some ways more lifted, which we often see. Um, my mentor, Gigi Sage, used to call one of her like intensive in-person days that she would work with clients, she used to call it the 5-hour facelift because we would see such profound changes for many people in just a short amount of time using the aliveness method. So you can look at each of these in your own time if you're hopefully able to do that and come back to the video here. I'd love to just hear from you in the chat if you were able to see those images. What did you notice? What were some of the differences on the second image versus the first one? You can just kind of type those into the chat. But typical things that we hear and that I see in many of these is the eyes are brighter, they're more open, often the two sides of the face are more balanced, and people often look more present in their eyes, like they're looking out through their eyes. So why does this happen? First of all, you guys back with me here. I hope you were able to get out there and come back. I couldn't figure out a way to share screen here. So just say back in the chat if you're back so I can make sure everyone can hear this next piece. So how does this happen? Like, why do we see these physiological changes happen when, okay, good, we've got at least one person back. How do we see these physiological changes happening when we do this work with people? Well, it all has to do with the way that we have a chart that I also can't show you physically here since I can't share my screen, but it's called the curiosity spectrum. And it talks about how over the course of our lives, our lights go out, basically. Because if you think about it, if you look in the eyes of a baby and then you look in the eyes of a high school senior, what is the difference? Okay, great. Some people are back. So tell me in the chat here, if you look in the eyes of a baby and then you look in the eyes of a high school senior, what do you think the difference is? Like, what's different about the baby? Okay, just think about that for a moment. I think there's a little delay, so I'll give you guys just a minute there. So babies are lit up. They're bright, they're curious, their eyes are open, they're present in their eyes, and they're totally in life and in their experience. And of course, if they have, trauma or a difficult childhood, this may change. But when a baby is born, they're completely lit up and alive, unless they're crying or upset or sick or something like that, right? Mary Pat says, baby will look directly. Yeah, that's often true. Fresh eyes, Courtney says. So what do you mean by fresh? And what do you mean by connectivity, Rose? Like, what do you actually see in a baby's eyes? And I would describe it as like bright and open and curious and present, words like this, right? But you can see what are the words that fit for you. So we're all this way. We're born this way. It's our natural state. And over the course of our lives, if you look in the eyes of a senior, remember, the lights are typically much dimmer to varying degrees. And so I'm not going to go through the whole curiosity spectrum because it's a whole process or a whole chart that really goes through how that shifts over the course of our lives. But just to simplify it, to make this really, really simple, as we grow up, we begin to, we learn language, and then we begin to have different experiences that start to put our lights out. And those can be bigger experiences like kids being mean to you, or teachers saying you should or shouldn't do something, or you can't do something that you want to do, or parents, or, society, whatever it might be, right? Or it can just be like having more rules to follow and more things to do, and we're less in our who we are just fully in our experience. And through this, our lights begin to dim. And actually, through some of the challenging experiences that we have in life, we like emotional waste gets stored on top of our natural light. There's that phrase that is very like the common quote we hear is that the eyes are the window to the soul. And we believe this is true. The eyes are a unique window into like the truth of who you are. And so that's why babies are so lit up and alive. And then we have this dimming that happens. And in that there's all kinds of other things that take place. Like I said, I'm not going to go into all of it, except for that the emotion gets stored, and then this begins to dim our light, and it develops our belief systems and so on and so forth. So we have to figure out, what are we going to do for a living? And then we go out in the world, and then we're, having to earn and like figure out our lives, and we lose trust in our ability to sometimes make our dreams come true, or we lose trust in other people because of experiences we have. And so all of this creates this, again, dimming of the light. And for some people it's more intense, and some people it's less. And for some it happens over gradually, and some it happens in these big experiences that they remember. So just think for yourself, like, when did your lights begin to dim? And so in our programs and in the aliveness method, what we do is actually helping people come back alive again, get more into alignment with the truth of who they are at the core, with that happy baby, but with the benefit of the wisdom of their life experiences. Because what happens, it's not like, oh, I mean, we could raise kids in the most incredible way and they'd still have some elements of this happen to them, right? It's part of the human experience. So why is that? We believe it's because it's how you gain your wisdom. It's how you gain your wisdom through some of these different challenges or experiences that happen to you. You gain wisdom that you can then share. And so there are 4 different ways that people can go back up the chart again, back up the curiosity spectrum, back into alignment with who they're really meant to be. And those 4 ways, I'm going to just find my list here so I make sure I say them all correctly, are a spiritual experience. All right, sometimes people have a spiritual experience that wakes them back up and they begin to make changes in their lives. Sometimes it's a life-altering event or loss, right? Have you ever known someone who they lose their job or they get a divorce and suddenly they're like, I'm going to change everything, or they start making shifts to really create the life that they want. Another way is through a severe illness or a health crisis. So if you have ever known someone to get really, really sick, or maybe even a person in their life got really sick, and then same thing, they start to make changes. Or if they're living the right lives for them, they become a lot more grateful for what they do have. And then the final way of the 4 ways that people can move back up the chart again is through education, which is what we do here at Follow Your Aliveness and with the aliveness method. So Rose says, babies don't tend to hold grudges. They're able to present wholeheartedly. Yes, absolutely. They're very, like we say, when a baby wants something, what do? They cry and when do they stop? When they get it, right? There's no like filters, right? And so we develop these over the course of our lives, and that is a part of this process we're talking about here. But now we're talking about, how do you go the other direction again? How do you get back in touch with that core of who you are, who knows exactly what you want deep down? Because the truth is, you do know exactly what you want deep down. And so this is a way of helping you, really helping your clients in this case is what we're talking about today. But the work we do is also about helping you rediscover what that is without advice or criticism or judgment or anything like that, but really pulling it out of you. And that's why I highly recommend those clarity calls, because that's an opportunity for you to start to see, to be in this space of like opening to see, what is it you really want? And, so you can start to move in that direction. Once we have clarity, then of course there's the how, but the clarity is the first step. Okay, Cindy says she has to drop out, but we'll watch later. Great, Cindy, awesome. So let's go into now that you know a little bit of the foundation of, what the impact of this work is and the ways that, the way our lights goes out and how it comes back on, now we're going to talk about the curiosity skill, because this is really the tool that you as a coach are going to use with clients, or by the way, with loved ones and other people in your life, to begin to tap into their curiosity. Because our curiosity, or our aliveness rather, is, we say, like a compass. So imagine a compass and it always points true north, right? So imagine that you have a true north. Like, let's call it what your soul is here to do, or what you desire most on a very deep level. And so that is your true north. But through our life and through, the different experiences, like I talked about, we begin to think we don't actually know what we want, or we get confused. We see what different people are doing and we think maybe we should be doing that, or that would be a better idea. And so it confuses the compass. Well, the compass is still pointing true north. We just don't know how to read the compass, right? And so what we're talking about here is, how can you help your clients find their true north again? And how can you do it for yourself as well? We can't really go into how to do it for yourself today because it would be too much to cover in this training. So we're just going to talk about how to do it for your clients using the curiosity skill. But first, just know that your aliveness is the compass that always points true north to what you most deeply desire, to what your soul is longing for, to what you're meant to do. And this is the tool that you can use with your clients to help them as well. So knowing that, how do you measure aliveness? How do you read that compass using the curiosity skill? So at every moment, this is true for everyone, write this down. At every moment, your vitality is either increasing or decreasing. Increasing or decreasing, right? People say you're either growing or you're dying. It's one way of looking at it. But moment to moment, you're either growing in your aliveness and vitality, or it's shrinking. And we can begin to observe these shifts in our clients through the curiosity skill. And I lost my notes here. So you can use the curiosity with your skill with yourself, like I said, to begin to chart these changes in your vitality and aliveness and make choices that are more in alignment for you and the life that you're meant to live. This is what this helps you do, is to not get 10 steps down the road and realize that you're not actually on the right path for you. And so, because what happens is people get good ideas or they get good advice and they start taking steps in that direction. And then a while down the road, they go, wait a second, this wasn't actually the right thing for me. Either it's not working, and so it's really not the right thing, or it is working, but you're not actually fulfilled. Not actually fulfilled. When you follow the thread of your aliveness instead, then you get 10 steps down the path, and things are always shifting, of course. Like, new information comes in and there's changes that happen. It's not like, oh, that one thing you saw. It's kind of like with a compass, right? You're like going through the forest. If you just like looked at the compass once and walked in that direction, it may or may not actually get you there. For many people, they'd get turned around or whatever. You have to keep checking the compass again, right? So your life is the same way. But what it does is, if you continue to follow the thread of that aliveness, you step into a life that is the life that is right for you, that is meant for you, that really deeply fulfills you. And so, again, we go deeply into this in our Aliveness Mastery certification. If you're curious at all about that, type but really clarity in the chat, because the easiest way is to do that free coaching session first. And then if you're curious about that program, we can tell you more about what it would be to apply. So make sure you friend request me before you type clarity or after you type clarity in the chat so I can send you that information. So how do you use this skill with others? We're going to focus on this for these last 10 minutes or so today. And it's going to sound very simple, but there's a lot of subtlety to this. And the subtlety lies in, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Here's the simple skill. When someone is talking, you don't listen deeply and get caught up in their story. You listen, but instead you sit back a little bit and you observe. When do you see a twinkle in the eye? When do you see a twinkle in the eye? When do you notice more light in the eyes, like they light up? Have you ever seen that before? If so, type lights in the chat. You've seen when somebody's talking and they just light up. So that is what we're looking for. Now, it is subtle because when people first learn this skill, a lot of times they look for where someone gets really animated or they're like smiling a lot. And that is not actually where they're lighting up. Okay. Rose says when they feel heard. Um, Sometimes, but that's actually not what we're talking about here. So people will really be grateful to feel heard, but that's not what we're talking about. Everyone's going to light up on something completely different. So it's more just to watch. You do want to be uninterrupted, let them talk, but it's in any conversation. You're going to sit back and you're going to let the person talk, or you're going to ask them a great question, let them talk, and wait and watch. Wait and watch for when you see that twinkle in the eye. And I talked about leading that coaching evening recently, and I brought someone up in front of the room to demonstrate, which I wish I could do here, but we're on Facebook Live, so I can't. But I brought someone up in front of the room to demonstrate, and I asked them a couple of questions, and they talked. And then I asked the room, where did you see them light up? And 95% of the room said the part where they smiled and they got really animated. But the truth is that isn't actually where they lit up. This is where the subtlety comes in. This is where we have to teach these skills and really practice them, because you might go, okay, I did it. Like they smiled and their eyes got brighter, I think, right there. And so that's what I'm going to follow. But like I said, 95% of the room on the first try didn't get it. Only one person in the room saw where their eyes actually lit up, because it's subtle. It's subtle. Someone's talking and they're whatever, and then like a little twinkle comes in. And they caught that and they said that when she said this and this. And I said, that's it right there. So why is this important? Once you learn this skill as a coach, then this is where you're going to watch for this with all of your clients. And you can do this with your friends, your family, with everyone. So for example, if someone is talking and they really like they're talking about sailing and they suddenly light up and you just see like that light come into their eyes, then what you want to do with that is you want to dig deeper. You want to ask another open-ended question that goes further and say something like, what was one of your favorite sailing experiences? And then they're going to go down that track of sailing, and it's going to open up this whole conversation for them, and clarity will begin to come through. Now, not in the sailing example because they're not trying to get clarity, but people will, even just from that, even just from following the lights when someone's talking, they're going to feel so much more connected to you and heard and seen and understood. So kind of like Rose was saying, they are going to feel more understood, but they're not going to feel understood. They're not going to light up because they feel understood. They're going to feel understood because you saw where they lit up and you followed the thread of the lights. Okay? So very subtle again, because I could go like this and oh my gosh, and da da da, and you could say, oh, McKenna's lighting up. But I'm not actually lighting up because it's not reaching my eyes. It is in the sense that like my eyes are crinkling, but the light isn't reaching my eyes. On the other hand, I don't know if I can actually make myself light up on cue here, but when I talk about like photo shoots, which is one of my favorite things in the world, is being on camera, like creating gorgeous art on camera and using these for our business and for pleasure and fun and for modeling and the transformational power of photo shoots, then notice, do you see a difference? I don't know if I lit up because I don't know, again, if I can do it on cue, but typically when I talk about that, more light comes into my eyes because it is something that is truly brings me alive. So Rose Gold said eyes, so I'm guessing that hopefully I did light up a little bit at least. So notice the difference again of me going like this, like, oh yeah, like what, let me pick another topic. Sailing is so great. Like when I went sailing, oh my goodness, da 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 da. I can fake it in a way, and people don't fake it, but you see what I'm saying? Like I can smile and be animated, but it doesn't actually reach the eyes. So I hope you guys are seeing the difference a little bit as well as I can show it. If so, type difference in the chat so I know that you kind of got even a glimmer of the difference between those two communications, where you saw the light more maybe when I talked about the photo shoots versus talking about sailing and smiling. So it seems simple, but it takes a lot of practice to really master this skill because we forget, first of all. So people are talking, they're coaching, and they get completely caught up in someone's story. And then I say to one of our students in their program, where did they light up? And they're like, oh, wait, I didn't even notice, right? Especially it's like if I'm telling you right now to watch for the lights, you're going to watch for the lights. But when people start coaching or having conversations again, they completely space and forget. And so a lot of the practice initially in our program, we teach, by the way, so many skills and frameworks. This is like the first little tiny tip of the iceberg, but it is incredibly important. It's one of the foundational skills. Yeah, it is. It's challenging on computers, Courtney, especially if you don't have me large. But as you get practice, you'll start to see it much more subtly, even online, because most of our coaching for most people these days is on the computer. And so you really want to learn to master the skill on the computer. So we forget and get caught up in people's stories. We forget to watch for the lights. And then learning to see those subtle shifts takes time because, like I said, it's different than someone just being animated. You really want to look for that subtle, like, where does that light or that curiosity come into their eyes? But here's the amazing thing that happens as you master this skill. People feel deeply seen and understood by you. You can reflect back to someone where you saw them light up. That's a very simple practice. I really saw you light up when you talked about XYZ. And they'll be like, oh, that's great feedback, right? It's true, pure feedback. It's not, oh, you should do this or you should do that. It's like, I saw a lot of light in your eyes when you talked about this. And then that is a clue. Now, it doesn't mean that when someone doesn't light up, they shouldn't do that thing. Again, there's a lot of subtlety to this, but it does mean that that's a little clue pointing them in the direction of their true north. And it changes all the time. So what you light up on, some things may not change. Like I've pretty consistently been lighting up around photo shoots for a long time, but a lot of times different things will light us up or won't light us up, and it doesn't mean anything. It's just a clue, okay? And so people will feel deeply seen and understood by you when you either reflect back where they lit up or you just ask open-ended questions to dig deeper in that direction. And it opens something up in people and they feel deeply seen and understood. It builds trust with your clients and with your loved ones if you use this with your loved ones. It really starts to build this great sense of trust because the way you're communicating with them is very different than anything they're experiencing anywhere else in their life. I promise you that. And we combine this with many of our other coaching skills like receptivity and, and then some of the other coaching principles to create a space when you're coaching someone that just like clarity comes through. I've, only had this experience with my mentor and then with coaches who are trained by us and then very rarely outside of that. But I did actually have an experience recently with someone who did this really beautifully. And here was my experience in talking to them. And it was funny because they weren't even really a coach. They were like a somatic experiencing person. So they were working with people, but not in like the typical coaching context. So I was, working with them for somatics, not for coaching. But my experience with that session was that I got more value out of that session than I got out of 10 sessions with other coaches that I had worked with who did not have these skills because they watched for the lights. They used curiosity and, they learned it some other way, or maybe it was just natural, intuitive to them. But they also, I could tell, really used the skills of receptivity. And because of that, it created this space where on the call, I started to see things completely differently. I started to, everything just started to come together. And this is the experience for your clients when you learn these coaching skills, when you learn the aliveness method. So we have many other frameworks, but these foundational skills are so powerful because even if you learn nothing else, you can coach with those skills and people's lives will be transformed. They will see what it is they want, finally feel like they're clear. They will, have aha moments and breakthroughs and realizations they will start moving in the direction of what they want instead of focusing on what they don't want and getting stuck in their problems and patterns and what's holding them back. So, of course, there's a lot more to this, but I hope you guys got at least a glimpse today. If you learned something today, type in the chat what has been your biggest aha so far. And I've got just the last couple things and then we'll wrap up here. But what has been your biggest aha so far? And the last couple things I want to talk about are the differences between good ideas versus aliveness. Okay, we teach this in our programs. Is a lot of people have a lot of good ideas, and when I'm coaching someone, they'll come to me, I think I should do this and this and this, or I've seen somebody do this, or whatever it might be, and they'll be talking and talking, and most coaches would go in and say, great, like let's create a plan to do that, I'm going to support you, da 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 da. Okay, if I'm sitting there with someone and they're telling me all these ideas they have and I don't see any light come into their eyes, I sit there and I'll just say something like, I don't see any lights. Now, I don't recommend you go out and start doing this right away because this takes a lot of practice and skill, and you don't want to I'm hesitant to even share that because I don't want you to go out and do that. For now, if you're learning this skill, only focus on where you do see light. Don't tell people if you don't see light, okay? Very important. But I'm very experienced at this, and so I might say something like, I don't see a lot of light. So what else? Like, what else would you love to do? Just asking an open-ended question like that. And then they go, oh, huh. And then they start thinking, or and then new ideas will often emerge. And then when I see them light up, I go, I see light. There's the light. Or sometimes the light is there's no light because we have to dig deeper. So sometimes I'll say, there's not a lot of light. Tell me more about why you want to do this. And then when they start talking about their why, then the lights come on. So again, there's subtlety to this. But what I want to point out here is that often people have a million good ideas, but like I shared before, if they follow the path of those ideas and they weren't actually aligned for them in the first place, they're either not going to work, or they're going to work, but they're not going to be fulfilled or not as successful as they would have wanted, right? So this is why we teach this skill, so you can start to help your clients distinguish between good ideas versus aliveness, and then to also determine this for yourself. Now, it's harder to figure this out for yourself, right? And that's why we offer the clarity calls. It's an opportunity for you to get on and work with one of our trained coaches to really see what it is you want, what is that vision or what is that desire, and really have that reflection of what's most alive and aligned for you, and then what could get in your way of creating that. Because once someone knows what they want, if you're working with a client and they get really clear on their desire, then you can look at the action steps, but you also have to look at what could get in their way. Because if you don't address what could get in their way, then whatever's been getting in their way up to now is going to show up again, right? We are creatures of habit, and we have these patterns that show up, and just because you got clarity about what you wanted doesn't mean all that goes away, right? So we have to know what is getting in your way so you can make a plan to move through that, to really break through and make the change you want to make in your life. So let me just see, follow the thread of the lights. Is this where the saying there's light at the end of the tunnel stems from? I don't know about that one. I think that's more like when people say there's light at the end of the tunnel, it's usually like you're going through something really hard and there's like, there's a light at the end, you'll get there. So that's not necessarily true in this case for everyone, but hey, I think it could apply in some way. So, all right, so any other ahas, takeaways? Okay, sparkle in their eyes is a spark from within. Great. Any questions? And then I'll just share while you guys are typing your ahas and your questions. Again, if you want to do that clarity call, the 30-minute free coaching session, put clarity in the chat and then make sure you friend requested me so that I can reach out to you. If you're on Facebook or Instagram, make sure you DM me, direct message me on Instagram. Find me at McKenna Sage, MakenaSage, and you can direct message me there. And then we will reach out to you to set up the clarity call if that's something that you want to do. If at the end of that call you feel like you've gotten value, you are curious from today or from that session about our coaching certification, our business programs, or anything else, then we'll let you know the process to apply from there. And then Package Your Wisdom, I mentioned before, because that is coming up soon. At the time of this recording, it's just a few weeks out. We start June 10th, I believe. That is a 21-day program to get crystal clear and client ready so that you are 100% aligned, like you know exactly who you serve, that there's a need in that market for what you have to offer, that you know exactly what your packages are, that they're high value, they create incredible transformation for people. You have the pricing that really fits for you. So you're totally confident and ready to put yourself out there as a coach. Or if you are already coaching, like I said, a lot of people go through this program to sort of reevaluate, like something's not quite lining up. I'm not getting the clients, or I'm getting the clients and I'm not really loving it. And so they go through this program to sort of in 21 days restructure, decide who they're going to work with. And but that's part of the process, right? As you're coaching, as you're growing a business, your market's going to change sometimes. Like things are going to shift and evolve, and I want to normalize that evolution. And it doesn't need to take a year to get clear on who you want to serve. People come to me all the time. They're like, I'm trying to get clear on my ideal client. I'm like, how long have you been trying to do that? Oh, you know, a few months now. I'm like, let's knock that out, okay? 21 days. $97 at the time of this recording. It may have gone up by the time you're watching this, but if you want to get in on that, type wisdom in the chat and I will get back to you. Again, make sure you have friend requested me first. And I think that is everything for today. So I'm so glad to have been here with you all. I love running these. We'll have another one next week. Let me see what our topic is. We're usually every Monday at 11, unless it's a holiday, 11 a.m. CST, Central Time. So if you're on another time zone, make sure you check for your time zone. So next week is going to be how to set the tone for your coaching and avoid challenging client situations. So this is really an important topic if you are, again, coaching people or going to start coaching people, because we want to help you avoid some of the challenging client situations that can come up in coaching, such as clients leaning out of the coaching process when something comes up in their life, when they're dealing with a challenge or a pattern shows up, and then they kind of lean out and they are disengaged from the coaching, when really that's when they should be leaning in. Clients canceling last minute or not showing up for scheduled sessions. Clients telling you they aren't getting value out of your coaching. That is not a fun one. I had that happen to me early on in my coaching career. I've shared about that before, but I'll talk again in this video about how can you set things up so that that doesn't happen. Miscommunications about what's included in your packages or what to expect from the coaching, or clients ghosting you for unknown reasons. These are just a few examples of the kinds of challenges that come up for coaches, especially new coaches, if they don't put these parameters in place. And so we're going to talk about how do you set the tone for your coaching from day one, even in the enrollment call, by the way, not just in the first coaching session. And let's see. Courtney says, so interested, but need about 5 weeks. Need about 5 weeks for what, hun? Let me know what you're talking about there. If you're talking about Package Your Wisdom, it starts in about 4 weeks, so that could actually be good timing for you. Or if you're talking about something else, I'm not sure. So just let me know in the chat. And then Rose said, have you ever not been able to connect? What do you mean by connect, Rose? And what did you do in that instance? What do you mean by connect? You mean with are we talking about the curiosity skill and like a client, or are we talking about something else? If you get specific there, I'd be happy to answer that before we end today. So while you're waiting, while I'm waiting for that to come through, since there's usually a delay, once again, next week, how to set the tone for your coaching and avoid challenging client situations. It's 11 a.m. Central Time here in the Master Your Coaching Facebook group. And I think those are all of my updates. Let's see if I got Rose's message here. Not yet. Courtney, okay, we'll definitely reach out to you. And let's see. Okay, awesome. Yes, with a client. Have you ever not been able to connect with a client? No. The reason being that I screen clients, we screen clients before we bring them on. So that's why we have an application process for our programs to really make sure it's super, super aligned on both sides. We don't accept everyone into our programs. So there is that sense of connection already there because they're super committed, they're fully invested in the process and so on. So in that sense, connecting, I've never had that. Not being able to see the light, um, you don't ignite the light. The light is in them already. So it's just a matter of no, I don't think I've ever not been able to find like to help someone to guide someone in such a way, ask questions in such a way that they find what lights them up eventually. Um, so, and again, like anything, we don't get fixated on it either. So there's other coaching skills that we teach, but again, this is where the practice part comes in and really learning the skill. But I would say that no, I don't think I've ever had the experience of like, I mean, maybe someone wouldn't light up on anything, but I think that I would be able to jump in there, or I would be able to jump in there with other skills to still help them see the direction they want to go. And usually, if they weren't lighting up on anything, this is a lot more advanced, so I can't really go into this in the call today. We teach this all in a progression in our programs for a very specific reason because if we taught the more advanced skills, people would go out there and try doing them. But if they haven't learned the foundational skills, then we find that it actually like they don't approach it in the right way to get the results. So I'm hesitant to go too deep into this, but what I'll say is that sometimes if someone isn't lighting up in very certain instances, um, there's something getting in the way of that, basically. And so, as a coach, using some of the more advanced skills, I can dive into what is that, like what's getting in the way, um, and through that we can facilitate often the breakthrough that allows them to reconnect to what it is there. Because sometimes people are for whatever reason, I don't even want to give examples because I don't want to put ideas in your head. So again, I thank you for your understanding. You appreciate the subtlety here, but that's what I would say is that if they're really not lighting up on anything, then often there's something over top. And as a coach, I would go into that, not to like process because this is the difference. A lot of people in coaching kind of go in and they want to dig into like the pain and the patterns and the what's holding people back, and it becomes this whole like, what would I say, it becomes this processing thing, like, oh, we're going to process and we're going to look and we're going to understand the cause and and I don't want to downplay all that. There's definitely value in that at times, but the aliveness method, the work that we do, is about taking people to where they want to go, not about, again, solving a problem. So we will sometimes get in and address those deeper pieces, but only in service of shifting them in the direction of where they want to go. People can let go of, we have processes, we have a very powerful coaching process that we teach, and it's extremely in depth, and people actually, it's a self-guided process, and people go through this process and let go of years of pain or trauma or hurt and all kinds of stuff, and they let it up and they let it out and they put it behind them, and sometimes like huge things that have happened to them, and in one night it's done. It never impacts their life again. They have freedom from it. And so that's the way that we work with these deeper things, is we don't get in and process, because processing can actually like perpetuate it. People get stuck in the loop or the story or the whatever. So instead we're moving them in the direction of where they want to go. So I hope that makes sense. Great question. And thank you all. I'm going to end here since we're right about at the hour. So appreciate you being here. Please come more live. And we have lots of great trainings in this group. Invite your friends. We'd love to have them here. I'm McKenna Sage, and I'll see you next week.